Hello and welcome back to 1992. There is absolutely nothing for us to preview this week, but we're still going to come on and do a show anyway. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by the legend that is Jonathan Wilson, TikTok influencer Jonathan Wilson, and also, unfortunately, Prediction League, top of the league, Jonathan Wilson, because, Jonathan, everything changed last week with the predictions, didn't it? As you said it would.
It was a big week. I hadn't had a correct score, which correct scores is a bit of randomness to it. You kind of, but you expect to average about one a week. So yeah, I got one of those with the correct first scorer as well. So that gave me a nice big boost. And my logic on the Liverpool-Arsenal game was proved spot on.
Yeah, it was.
Liverpool would win 1-0. You challenged me on it. I explained why I thought that would happen. And it happened.
It did. Didn't get the goal scorer right in that one, fortunately, but unfortunately, you did get the goal scorer right a couple of times. So to keep you updated, Jonathan got a massive 10 points last week, which takes his total to 20. I got a measly 3, which leaves me languishing on 16. So it does show that week by week it can change pretty quickly. I think I barely got a result right. I just happened to get a couple of goal scorers right. I think the only result I actually got right was Chelsea.
Right, yeah. Which is the game I got the 4 points because I got Jean Pedro and 2-0. Although I did need a little bit of help from VAR to get that one.
Yeah, I did notice you doing your TikTok slagging off VAR, saying that we should get rid of VAR because it helped you this week in this instance with the Prediction League.
Very much helped Sunderland as well with a couple of things. So I'm very much pro VAR at the moment.
This week anyway. Those of you that are eagle-eyed, unlike VAR, will see that in my background I've got something new. Jonathan, do you like the look of that thing over my left shoulder?
It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in a Zoom shot with you.
Yeah, well, yeah. New book from you, Jonathan. How many books have you wrote now or written? I don't even know if it's wrote or written, which shows why I've never done that.
It's written.
Yeah.
I don't know actually. It depends what you count, but either 13, 14, or 15, depending what you count.
So is it like are you averaging one a year since you started writing books, or
no? So I started. So in February will be the 20th anniversary of my first book. Behind
Everyone
the Curtain.
knows that book.
I don't. Well, do they Behind the Curtain?
I know. I thought it was going to be Inverting the Pyramid. I'm going to be honest.
No, that was my third book.
No, nobody knows Behind the Curtain then.
Well, there'll be a new edition out in February to celebrate 20 years after it came out. And it's me, as a young man, going around Eastern Europe having adventures, talking about football.
Excellent. And I haven't read it yet. It's made a lovely backdrop for me though. But I'm going to read it. I'm going away next week, so I'm going to take it away with me, Jonathan.
Yeah, so it's out today. The Power and the Glory, my history of the World Cup. 600 glorious pages going into very nerdy detail about not just the football, but the politics and the culture behind it.
Yeah, do check out Jonathan's book if you are enjoying this podcast and you've enjoyed all Jonathan's work over the years, which I'm sure there's many of you. Should we get into the show? Jonathan,
yes,
as I said,
why not? Yeah,
absolutely nothing to preview this week. Although I suppose we are previewing England a little bit. We've got some England content towards the end. But let's talk about some of the deals that happened at the end of the transfer window and how we think some of the clubs are set now. I mean, it feels like we've done this to death, but I suppose we should cover the fact that it's a British transfer record and Isak finally got his wish and managed to get his move to Liverpool. How do you see him fitting in?
Well, look, he's a really good centre forward. I think he and Haaland are the best two pure centre forwards in the league. He scored 20 goals plus in each of the last two Premier League seasons, which shows his quality. Because Newcastle haven't necessarily been the freest scoring side in that time. I think it's Liverpool beginning to look to a world without Mohamed Salah, which, given how Salah's start of the season, might maybe come slightly sooner than we think. I mean, he's got 2 years left on his contract. I think that probably means they'll look to offload him next summer, maybe to Saudi Arabia, and at least get 25, 30, maybe 40 million for him. I mean, they still then need somebody to play off the right. That's what they seem to be lacking. I think it is possible you could see Isak and Ekitike playing together, although that would take a bit of a shift of shape. I think they could both play centrally because they're both good at pulling wide. And I think Isak naturally, both can go either way, but I think Isak naturally goes right and Ekitike naturally goes left. So you could imagine that working with Florian Wirtz behind them. I think that would be an option in very specific circumstances, because I think Schlott like most such managers likes a front three or a 4-2-3-1.
You talking an old-fashioned diamond here, them reversing to an old-fashioned diamond, or would it be different on and off the ball, and they'd probably keep the same basic formation, but when they've got the ball, people would shimmy around a bit?
I think when we think of the old-fashioned diamond, it tends to be with an old-fashioned front pairing, with then a creator behind, and then you have the two shuttlers, and the holding place is quite narrow. I think the way it would be these days would be, rather than having that sort of very obvious holding player with two players quite narrow, that three in midfield would be a little bit wider. Mm-hmm. There's more of a 4-3-1-2, but equally the two would be wider. If you think of the old strike partnerships, you'd have the target man and finisher, or the creator and finisher. So the Quinn and Phillips, or the Dalglish and Rush. And I don't think if they did play like that, I don't think that's how it would be. I think they'd both be quite mobile. They'd split. They'd create space for Wirtz to move between them. As I said, I don't think that's going to be the default formation in any sense. I think it'd be one or the other. I think it'd be Ekitike or Isak. I mean, they have both played wide at various points, but I don't think that's where you would want to play them. So, I think it'll be Ekitike or Isak, and then the other one coming off the bench, which itself is quite intimidating. That one of them runs the legs off a defence for 65, 70 minutes, and the other one comes on and mops up against tired defenders. That's a difficult thing to play against. So I think it's adding depth, adding strength. I don't think it matters that they're not both going to start, although they both cost a lot of money. I think, though, if you look at the Liverpool squad, they are short at centre-back, which is why they were so keen to get Mark Gay in. And I think they're possibly short in midfield as well. It's a very front-loaded squad at the moment.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of a little bit different this year. I think everyone's got a squad and people will have certain games where they're on the bench, but I think they kind of do both have to play the bulk of the games. I was thinking how that may work, and obviously they've brought in Kirkes, who I think is going to hold the width, obviously, from the left-hand side, because that's what he does. So you work in a world where Ekitike is playing from that left-hand side, but he is cutting in and he's sitting a bit more narrow, where Wirtz can obviously drift in and around those pockets as well, and Isak is the centre forward. And Gakpo, I think, was predominantly seen as a centre forward when he came in, and then he's played predominantly from the left for Liverpool. Can Ekitike do that?
Maybe. I mean, I think with Gakpo, Gakpo played more games wide left, and I think Gakpo in his own mind had always thought himself as a left-sided forward, sort of almost a left-sided equivalent to Salah. That yes, he's a centre forward. Or sorry, yes, he's a forward who looks to score goals, but he does it from a flank rather than the centre. And I think Klopp maybe tried to convert him, and I'm not sure Gakpo was ever convinced by that. And one of the things that happened quite quickly last season was that Schlott said, "Okay, Gakpo plays on the left, and if need be, we'll play Diaz through the middle, even though we think of him as a winger." So I think, and that may be that Schlott had seen more of Gakpo playing in the Netherlands, was very sure in his own mind what sort of player Gakpo was. So, yes, that could work. I think Ekitike is not such a natural wide player as Gakpo. I take the point that Kirkes overlapping gets the best out of Kirkes. I mean, certainly defending doesn't get the best out of Kirkes.
Not at the moment, no.
But that sort of backs up the point I'm making about the squad looking a bit front-loaded, that the two fullbacks they brought in are both very front-footed, and that puts a huge amount of pressure on Gravenberch and McAllister or Curtis Jones at the back of midfield.
Or Szoboszlai as well, because he has to play somewhere. I know he's playing right back at the moment, but I think when everyone's fit, I think you've got to find a way of getting him into the team, because I think they've realised quite quickly that actually he's pretty instrumental to what they do.
I mean, he's had a brilliant start to the season. I think it's enormous credit to him that he's been prepared to play at fullback, which I think some creative midfielders might have seen as a demotion. But he's played right back. The two games he's played right back, admittedly, one of these instances was after he moved back into midfield because of substitutions. But he sets up a winner with his dummy against Newcastle, then he scores a brilliant free kick against Arsenal. So Szoboszlai has started the season incredibly well. I guess maybe you'd say this is sort of a very Dutch way of doing things, that they don't look at players as positions. They look at them as bundles of attributes, and they think, what can that bundle of attributes do? And Szoboszlai, if you think about it, it's not he's played right back against teams who are going to finish in the bottom 4 or 5. He's done it against Newcastle and Arsenal. So two of the hardest examinations he's going to get. And he's been very good at it. So does he become the right back rather than Connor Bradley or Frimpong or Joe Gomez? I mean, it would seem implausible, but equally, the evidence of the last two games suggests he's actually pretty good at it.
Yeah, they beat their title rivals Arsenal 1-0 last week with him playing there. Kept the first clean sheet of the season as well. You've mentioned it already, but they obviously wanted to add Mark Gahey to their defensive ranks, and he would have been a brilliant signing. He's a brilliant player, but has this shown in the transfer window that almost crime does pay? Because Gahey's gone about his business very, very. Can you tell I've been watching Breaking Bad again recently by using that? I don't know why I said that. Gahey has gone the right way about it, I would say. Like, it's clear he wants to move. He's not going to sign a new contract, but he's played every single game that Crystal Palace have asked him to, and he's played it to the best of his ability. Other players have refused to play, sulked. They've got their moves, but Mark Gahey didn't. Have you got some sympathy for him, Jonathan?
I've got a bit of sympathy for him, but I think it's a stretch to say on the basis of looking at what's happened with him, looking at what's happened with Wissa and with Isak, that you're going on strike, throwing your toys out the pram, that works. I just think the situations are quite different. I think what we have seen, and where Gay's been a little bit of a victim of this, is that one of the consequences of PSR, which I don't think anybody really expected, is that because clubs are so conscious of how much they can spend, and it's not, previously you could have thought, right, we'll buy this player now, and we'll have to sell a couple, but if it happens in January or next summer, that's fine. You can't do that now. There's a hard and fast limit. Your budget has to meet a certain level by the 30th of June each year. And what that means is it's a bit like buying a house, that you can't just buy the house and then think, I'll sell my other house in 6 months. You have to sell your house, then buy the house. So you get these chains. And that's why I think so many deals went down to that last sort of 48 hours, because there was often 2, 3, 4, 5 players in the chain. And the reason Palace didn't sell was because they couldn't get the player in they wanted. And so, as happens in a property chain, one link goes and it falls apart. So I think that's the lesson rather than anything about player behaviour. I mean, Isak and Wissa have benefited, I guess, short term. But I mean, Gay probably will leave in January. I'd be surprised if that deal isn't done then, because then Palace get at least some money for him. I think Gay, unless I'm totally misjudging him as a character, I think, yes, he's disappointed. I understand that. But he's not old. What is he, 26?
I think he might have. Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's hit his peak yet.
So he's got plenty of time. He obviously has an affection to Crystal Palace. I think.
It's 25, by the way.
25, okay. So obviously Oliver Glasner has to sort of have a word to him and say, look, I'm really sorry, this is what's going on. But, we have no ill will to you. You behave very well to us. We'll behave well to you. Off you go in January with our blessing. Please just play quite well for the next sort of 5 months. And hopefully that'll happen. I think to draw this moral conclusion from it is stretching things a bit. I think you've got to look at the specific circumstances rather than necessarily seeing that as a trend.
Let me tell you, I wish he had kicked up a stink and refused to play at the weekend, because I was not expecting to see him curling 25-yarders against my team on Sunday night. A great analogy, by the way, about the chain. I know 100% going to clip that up and get that out there, because I haven't heard anyone analyse it like that, and it's a good bit of analysis from you, Jonathan. Let's talk goalkeepers now then. Let's start with Manchester United. They've got 4 senior goalkeepers on their books. I'd a guess they're probably paying somewhere near £500,000 a week to keep these 4 goalkeepers. I'm assuming the new one is going to be number 1, although there has been some murmurs that he's not. What have you made of their goalkeeping situation? And of course, there was another goalkeeper who almost chained himself to the Villa training ground waiting to get a move that was never there.
Well, I mean, Lamans has come in. He was obviously their first choice, which makes sense, I think. I mean, obviously, Martinez is proven Premier League player. Yeah, clearly been a very good goalkeeper over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. But he is, 34? 32, sorry. I'm just guessing players' ages here.
Maybe I'll incorporate a game into this where we guess players' ages. I think it'd be quite interesting.
And Lamans is, I'm going to say 23. He's 23.
23, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really bad at this game as well.
I'm all right at retaining ages, but yeah, you're close. You've been close with what you've said so far.
The point is, Lamans is much younger than Martinez, so I understand that logic, particularly the situation United are in, where they've got this shambolic squad. You can understand why they think, right, just get a keeper who's going to be our keeper for 10 years, and we can stop thinking about that, as they did with Schmeichel, for instance. Bring in really good, really talented young keeper, and I hope that he's right. I mean, Lamans hasn't played for Belgium yet, so just quite how talented he is, I guess we wait and see.
De Gea they did that with as well, didn't they?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I guess when you've got Courtois ahead of you in the national team, it is quite hard to break in. So, not necessarily saying that the fact he hasn't played for Belgium yet means he's terrible, but it just means that there's a slight question mark there. It does feel like they used Martinez just as a way of bringing the deal down with Antwerp for Lamans. So there was a way of saying, actually, we've got another option. So don't mess us around here. Which isn't great behaviour, but they're saying not the only club to do it. But I think what's fascinating is they got themselves in this position of needing to buy a keeper on deadline day. That how have Manchester United got themselves in a situation where they don't have a goalkeeper good enough? And I think what's interesting there is Onana looked a really good keeper at Ajax. He looked a really good keeper at Inter. And he gets to the Premier League and doesn't look anywhere near the level, and never has. I mean, he's made some good saves, but he's never looked convincing. You've never trusted him. He's got a slightly unorthodox technique, which I don't want to say that that's wrong, because I think at Ajax they did some testing on him that his starting position is much more upright than you'd expect. And I think they did test that with him, sort of adopting the more sort of orthodox crouch position. And it turned out he's quicker getting down to balls from his position. So just because it's unorthodox doesn't make it wrong. But what it means is that when things go wrong, it looks bad. And that possibly has increased the scrutiny on him. But also his judgment is often quite bad. And I guess that's partly things start to go wrong. You start to panic. I think particularly as a keeper, you often second guess yourself. You think right back to the start, the season before last when they played Wolves on the opening weekend. I think it was the Monday night game on the first weekend.
Yeah,
and he should have conceded the penalty, and he got away with it. And basically from there, it hasn't really got any better. So what I find fascinating there is that the Premier League exposing somebody, that the extra physicality, the extra level of the Premier League means that the slightest flaw is magnified, or is that Manchester United dragging another player down, or is it both?
I think probably a combination of things, isn't it? We've seen players get out the Manchester United environment and do okay. We've seen other players continue on that downward trajectory. I guess every case is different, but you're right to pick out that Onana, I think he probably won Champions League goalkeeper of the year twice, both with Ajax and Inter, so he was obviously a capable goalkeeper. The bit of this I find interesting now is that Bardell has started the opening Premier League games. So now, does Onana is he just not in the matchday squad, or do you think they'll do that thing where we'll keep Onana on the bench because he's the higher profile player?
I mean, I would hope that they choose that based on merit in training as to who gets to be the backup keeper. I think Onana was left out because of issues when he came back from pre-season. He came back to pre-season. That I think the suggestion that he hadn't looked after himself as well as he might have done in the summer. And I think it was almost sort of a punishment. Right, you're not the starting keeper because you've let us down. And also, United, all their players, I think, had a 25% wage cut in the summer because they hadn't qualified for Europe. That was in their contracts. And I think he tried to renegotiate his contract.
I'd love to be part of that conversation. I think I've done really well this year. And I would like that 25% wage cut not to affect me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the club weren't especially impressed by that. The idea of, this thing you've given to everybody because we haven't gotten to Europe, so we're not making as much money. So it's very logical. It's our fault. We, the players, haven't performed. So there's not so much money coming in, so we can't have as much money. Although that does seem reasonable, I actually want a bit more because I've been brilliant.
Yeah, that makes no. So I'm sure Manchester United fans would pick him out as one of the main culprits. Let's stick with goalkeepers then. Let's talk about Donnarumma. Should I have a guess? At how old Donnarumma is?
26.
Yeah, I was going to go 26 as well. I can't even spell his name, so that's a bad start in my research into how old he is. He's 26. We were both right.
Come on!
Come on, we're better than we thought we were. This is actually probably all the signings that have been made in the last week or so. Probably the one that fascinates me the most, because I was listening to some stuff with Joe Hart the other day, and he was talking about when he got bummed out by Pep for not being good enough with his feet, or that he was saying he's perfectly adequate with his feet, although it's not his best attribute. He's kind of saying it's the same with Donnarumma. Like, he's obviously never going to be Edison with his feet, but he's a very good goalkeeper, and he's very capable with his feet as well. This is an interesting change to the goalkeeping ranks for Manchester City after so long with one man being their goalkeeper.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm also slightly interested that United didn't go after Donnarumma.
Yeah, same.
I don't, or even Chelsea, to be honest. I think there was very preliminary contact, but which quickly sort of withered with Chelsea. But I'm surprised that City was so unopposed in getting him, because, as you say, he's an excellent goalkeeper with a great record of having great performances in key games. And the big doubt is about his footwork. So it's quite difficult to get statistical evidence for this. So last season in Liga, his pass completion rate was, I think, is either 85 or 86%, which is, and Edison's was 86%. So on that logic, you say exactly the same. And then you look at how many long passes, and Edison's about 3 times as many. So obviously, the more long passes you play, the more likely your pass completion rate is to go down, because those passes are harder passes. And you also think, well, in Liga, how often is he receiving the ball under pressure? How often has the ball just been knocked back to him and he's got 40 yards to play with and he rolls it out to the fullback or something, and that's a pass completed? So that 85, 86%, I think that could be slightly misleading. James Trafford, for what it's worth, was, I think, 70% last season. I think Trafford obviously made the mistake against Spurs, which is partly his mistake, partly Nico Gonzalez's mistake. I think I'd split the blame 60-40, and it seemed to go sort of 80-20. But I think Gonzalez has to take some responsibility for that. But I've got a broader point with James Trafford, which is that, and this is having seen him at Brighton on Sunday, I think his starting position is maybe 5 yards deeper than Edison's. And that means that when opponents play those balls in behind the City back line, which pushes up, and I think it's pushing up more aggressively this season since Pep Lijnders got there. I think it's a big Pep Lijnders thing, is that very aggressive offside line. I'm not convinced Trafford is comfortable mopping up. And that last half hour after Brighton made the quadruple sub, they must have had 5 chances, one-on-one chances, or maybe so 2-on-2 chances, because of those balls played in behind the back line. So I get that if Trafford's got to relearn his starting position, I understand why they want to bring in somebody to replace him. Whether Donnarumma's the right person to do that, I'm not sure, because PSG play a high line under Luis Enrique, but why are they getting rid of him? Because they feel he's not good enough with his feet. That's why they've gone for the Chevalier. When he played in Italy, he played for teams who play quite a low line. So I think that's another question mark. I'll be fascinated to see how that works. And I do wonder whether Guardiola has actually made that deal. And that, I think, is something else that's almost gone slightly under the radar with City. That Txiki Begiristain, who was a sporting director, left in the summer. Hugo Viana's come in. Well, Begiristain and Guardiola were very, very close. So when Guardiola was appointed, he had Ferran Soriano there as a CEO, he had Txiki Begiristain as a sporting director. It was that former Barcelona core. Well, Viana comes from a different tradition. He's not part of that set.
Yeah.
So maybe his ideas are slightly different, and maybe if he's doing the recruitment, it's not necessarily as congruent with Guardiola's plans and desires. So I do wonder if there could end up being a little bit of tension there. And could this be City looking to a post-Pep future and thinking, Donnarumma, he's 26, we get 8 years more out of him, and he's clearly a brilliant keeper, and the new manager will love him even if Pep doesn't.
Yeah, I just moving away from kind of transfer and just talking about Manchester City in general, because we were going to do that anyway, so it seems the right thing to do it now. Just generally, it doesn't feel to me like much has changed in terms of how open they are team just haven't got that fear factor anymore when they play against them. I said in the summer that I didn't look at any of their signings and I didn't think, wow, like that's a game changer. Like they obviously lost a lot of players. There was a lot of churn and they started that rebuild in January. But I just look at them. I don't think they're going to win the league this season. You've obviously watched them firsthand on Sunday. Did it feel like a follow-on from last season, even though there's a lot of new players?
I mean, yeah, it did, to be honest. They weren't as bad as they were sort of November last year. Sunday was Rodri's first start in the league since he got the injury against Arsenal last October. And he was fine, but I think there's a sense he's sort of feeling his way back. He was notably irritated afterwards. He talked about what was the phrase he used? Is it something along the lines of schoolboy mistakes or children's mistakes? Which I think he's right about that. But on the pitch, he wasn't able to put them right himself. I thought their level dipped quite a lot after Bernardo Silva went off, which was, I think, 71, 72 minutes, something like that. So Brighton had equalised by that point from the penalty. And Guardiola afterwards said, the penalty changed the momentum of the game. And City started going along and they didn't then push up high enough to make that effective. Which I think is probably from a tactical point of view true, but what's more interesting is why did they start to go long? It was because some sort of panic set in. They left the game plan. And the great hallmark of Guardiola teams over the years is they don't change the game plan. They just keep going. Or certainly when they're playing well, that's true. So I think there's a lot of issues there. I agree with you about the recruitment. Look, Marmoush is clearly a very, very good forward. Cherki, I think, when they signed him, I thought, he could be a perfect sort of creator who Guardiola molds to be sort of not necessarily a new De Bruyne, but taking up that sort of creative mantle. And obviously, he's now got the injuries out for 2 months. We hadn't seen any evidence of him being particularly good in the 2 games, but it's 2 games. That openness, it was there early on against Wolves. It was there against Tottenham. It was there against Al Hilal. It was there against Palace. It's a big problem for them. And they don't look like solving that. Now, it might be that Rodri getting back to full fitness, getting into the swing of it, maybe that does resolve it. But it's a lot of pressure on a player coming back from a serious injury.
Yeah, I always think as well, whatever centre-back combinations on the pitch so far this season, when other teams are in transition and coming against them, I just feel like the gap always seems so big between them, which makes no sense to me at all. Let's move on from goalkeepers and Manchester City then, Jonathan. Let's talk about Newcastle and centre-forwards. It's taken all summer. They've got 2 centre-forwards in. One we know very well from the Premier League. One we don't know an awful lot about, but he's actually the more expensive signing of the 2. What have you made of the Newcastle striker situation, how they've replaced Isak and Wilson? Wilson's are notoriously hard to replace.
Oh, almost impossible, I'd say. I think, on a purely sort of rational level, Isak plus Wilson and Wissa or Voltemada, it feels roughly similar. I think Isak is an exceptional forward. I think Callum Wilson was coming to the end. I'm not saying either Wissa or Voltemada is as good as Isak, but I think the combination of the 2 compared to the 2 that they've lost feels like it pretty much balances out. I mean, obviously there's doubts about any transfer. Voltemada is young. He's coming from a different league.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. He's a slightly unusual profile of player in that he's 6'6", I think, or 6'5", 6'6".
But how old is he? That's the real quiz.
20?
I don't know. I want to say 22. So he's probably 21. That's the real quiz.
He played for Germany in the under-21s in the summer.
Yeah, but so did Harvey Elliott, and he's 22.
It's true. It's birthday at a particular point, isn't it?
Yeah, he's 23.
23. Oh.
23. Jeez.
He's big, but he doesn't sort of use his sort of size in a way that Niall Quinn did. He's a more technical player than that. He's a little bit Arnautovic, maybe. I'm not saying he's got the tempestuous personality of an Arnautovic, but that idea of being a big bloke is actually technically very, very accomplished. Wissa, I think any player who played for Brentford, there's a question: what are they like when they leave Brentford? Because Brentford is such a specific environment where everything works together, and I think it elevates people. It's not saying he won't succeed, it's saying that that's a doubt I'd have. The two would seem like a logical pairing, that Wissa is quick, Voltemada is big. You can imagine them, the transitional style that Newcastle like, the Wissa on one side, Anthony Gordon on the other, with Voltemada between them, would seem to work, or Alanga. There's options there. So I think they've actually done fine. But the problem is that the way the Isak deal was conducted, it feels like a defeat for them. It feels like a retreat. But you look at the players they've brought in, actually that squad looks better than it did last season.
Yeah, all round, I think they've had a good window. I think, obviously, question marks over whether the centre forwards will work. And I think it makes sense that they've bought one who they will perceive as being Premier League proven, and one who's obviously going to be their centre forward for a long time, and they hope will fill the shoes of Isak, even though he plays the game in a completely different way. Vissa works as well because I think he can play different positions in the front three, so they actually can play together. So we're talking about Ekitike and Isak, but I think it's pretty proven that these two will be able to play games in the same 11. I like your point though about Brentford. So I was trying to think, has anyone gone from the Brentford environment elsewhere and been a success? And David Raya is obviously one. Ezri Konsa for Villa's been very good coming from Brentford. But if you think of forward players, obviously we never got to see it with Ivan Toney because he went off to Saudi Arabia. Think of Mopai. He was very good for Brentford, but not really fitted in anywhere else. That's the best example I can come up with. And I'm not 100% convinced that Mbeumo is going to work at Manchester United. I think much of that is down to system in the Manchester United environment. But I do think it's a valid point and a valid question about coming out of the Brentford environment, especially for that money at 29 as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like the sort of British equivalent or the English equivalent of Ajax. That Ajax is such a specific place where everybody plays such a their roles within that system are so precisely outlined, and everything the club has done on a holistic basis, so that everything makes everything else better. With Brentford, you'd say that the manager as well last season, that forward line, the three of them got Shada and Wissa and Mbeumo got the best out of each other.
Yeah.
I think having Damsgaard playing behind them, those four got the best out of each other. You could deal with every individual component of that team. It all worked in a really precise way. I think even the way the stadium is laid out, they've just got that club right. That's how you put every element in place so that every element has an inflationary impact on every other element. And so you take out any one element, and it's very hard to know how that's going to do outside of that environment. Thomas Frank has had a good start at Tottenham, which doesn't particularly surprise me. But I think with players that they have to adapt to just a totally new way of doing things, not just new teammates and a new formation, but everything about the new club they join will be totally different. And they'll probably have to do a bit more for themselves, if that makes sense. That rather than the template being laid out and your role being very prescribed, it's a little bit more for negotiation at other places.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see how they get on Newcastle. Obviously, a season where they're going to be in the Champions League as well. But I do think generally they're pretty well set in terms of squad depth. They've got the best squad that they've had overall since Eddie Howe's been there. So they have evolved after some windows of not doing anything. Quick word on Kolo Muani at Spurs. Feels like he might have come in as a kind of anecdote because Solanke might have a bad injury, but as a player with pedigree, it'd be interesting to see him in the Premier League.
Well, I think just having a bit of depth, particularly when in the Champions League,
they've
is
got
a good
lot
thing.
Of front options now, haven't they, Tottenham? They see the players they've left out of their European squad. Yeah,
I mean, I think the bigger issue is less Solanke than Matisse Tell, who Thomas Frank doesn't seem to rate at all. The fact that he hasn't even named him in the Champions League squad, that's an extraordinary thing. But as a centre forward, Richarlison can play across the front line. Solanke, Kolo Muani. I think Kolo Muani is an interesting deal in that I think he's just slightly lost his way at PSG, but we've seen his talent. He's clearly very, very gifted. So, a loan deal to try and resurrect his career, but also give Spurs a bit more attacking quality. I think that makes a lot of sense for them.
Yeah, and Villa, quick word on Villa, finally decided to do some business on the last day. I guess the one that stands out for Villa is Harvey Elliott, because it was unexpected. A player who did so well in the summer for the England under-21s. He'll join permanently as well, because he just has to play 10 games for that to get activated. I mean, I hope I haven't cursed that now by saying that. But that's an interesting one to see him in a team where he'll probably play most weeks.
Yeah, it's interesting from both points of view. I think he's a player Villa needed.
Yeah.
I think essentially replacing the loan players in terms of squad depth, I think was important. Somebody to provide that bit of spark, that bit of energy, but also he's looked really good. I'm not quite sure why Slot clearly doesn't fancy him. Had a great under 21 years, as you say. So keen to see him play more regularly. I think the age he's at, which could be anything, let's be honest. 23.
He's 22. He's
22. God, so hard, isn't it? It keeps changing as well. Every year,
it's hard to keep up with it.
But he is at an age when he needs to start playing regularly. Interested to see how that works. And I think as well, from Villa's point of view, okay, they brought in Lindelof, who I think is one of those players worth a gamble on, because I don't think he's a bad player. It just depends how far he's dropped at United. But yeah, as you mentioned earlier, we've seen a lot of players who leave United and immediately get a new lease of life. But then you look at the others they've signed who best one in the world. They're not household names and they're not Premier League proven. Bizot and Guessin and Yassine and Redmond.
Two of them have gone on loan already, so we're not going to say them.
But they're players who it's a bit of a gamble, because you don't necessarily know how they'll do in the Premier League, and the fact that two of them have been loaned out suggests they are players for the future anyway.
Yeah, and I've convinced myself that Sancho's going to be a success at Aston Villa as Jacob Ramsey's replacement as the left 10. I think you've said that Rashford and Asensio, the loan players, have gone. It's quite clear that in kind of a weird way, Sancho and Elliott have replaced them, and then it's Gasson. It's Sancho, for Ramsey, and then they've got Gasson for Bailey. The squad's not quite as balanced as it was, but in terms of numbers now, at least Villa are back up to where they were in the second half of last season. Time now for you, Jonathan, to pick your best signing of the window.
I mean, do you mean the signing that I think will prove best overall, or the signing who's already done the most?
It could be either, to be honest. Mine probably fits into both categories. Do you want to know who mine is?
Yeah, go on, tell me yours.
I've just picked Jack Grealish because I think he's proven at a club of that size. I think he'll carry Everton on his back pretty well. He's got 4 assists already. I just think he's made a feel good there, and I actually think Everton are going to push towards the top 6 under David Moyes.
Okay, I mean, I think top 6 is ambitious.
I'm not saying they're going to get there, but I think they'll be in and around it.
I take your point that Grealish immediately. I mean, 4 assists already?
Yeah.
He's 29, I think.
About to turn 30.
Yeah, 29.
Yeah, 29 until he turns 30.
He seems to have fitted in pretty quickly. That classic thing. Everybody says, but it does look like he's enjoying it again, which is nice to see. I mean, I think Isak is a good signing, but it's a boring answer. I think Granit Xhaka has started really well for Sunderland.
Oh, here he is. Yeah, he has. Sunderland, I'm really pleased to see Sunderland doing so well early doors. 2 wins already, Jonathan. That's incredible.
Well, the fixture list has been kind.
Yeah, but I said that about Villa's fixtures at the start of the season, and we haven't scored a goal yet. So, I wouldn't worry about that.
But I mean, I think Sunderland need to take a minimum of 5 points from the first 3 games. They've taken 6. A little bit worried about how they struggled at Burnley, at a team who didn't come onto them, but most teams will come on to Sunderland. So Palace away next is tough.
Litmus test.
But hopefully Gay's gone a bit berserk and everybody's destabilised.
He scored his 25-yarder for the season. I can't imagine he's going to do that every week, so at least you're safe from that.
And then Villa at home the game after that. So
yeah, I'm not looking forward to that, in all honesty.
Really, really hope you haven't found your form by then.
No. But you have. What would your answer, Jonathan?
Well, I'm going to say who's played best so far. I will say Granit Xhaka, because I think he has been excellent so far.
That's a good sign. It's a good sign, whichever way you look at it.
In long term, I mean, I sort of think, and it's a loan signing, but I think Palhinha's looked like he could be really important for Tottenham.
He was the number 1. The Athletic did a piece of rating all the signings, and João Palhinha was, with all their tests that they do, João Palhinha came out as number 1. I think he's the best signing that's been made this summer.
And you know how much I respect the Athletics, so
I don't actually, but I imagine less since I left. I imagine respect used to be through the roof when I was there when I was there every week. Is there a player that's impressed you so far this season? Just pick out one.
Annoyingly, we've already touched on it, but I think Szoboszlai has been incredible. I mean, a player who it would have been very easy for him to fade away and sort of be looking for a move come January or the summer, because he is a really gifted player. Possibly hungry in a World Cup, we'll see. But it's very hard to see where he fitted in that side with all the new signings. And it turns out it's at right back, and he's been incredible. And his goal against Arsenal was brilliant. The dummy against Newcastle was brilliant. But I think it's his attitude playing, back in midfield and then at right back, two positions you wouldn't necessarily have thought he was particularly equipped for. And he's done them exceptionally well. So I think on a technical level, on a tactical level, but also just on a personality level, that he's been prepared to adapt himself for the team.
Yeah, I picked Ekitike, but we've already spoken about him as well. So I'm going to mention my number 2 pick, Semenya. Couldn't hit a barn door on Saturday against Tottenham, but generally just so impressive for Bournemouth. The way he can go off both sides, it's such a dangerous weapon to have. And Bournemouth, despite losing their first game to Liverpool, where they performed well, have actually started the season really well. And you do think, how do they keep evolving? Because they sold their whole defence and goalkeeper.
I thought there was a real danger they might struggle this season.
Same.
If you look at the goalkeeper and back four, they lost 4 of those 5 players. It's incredible that the biggest deals in Spain and France this year were Bournemouth centre backs. I mean, that shows how well they signed as well. But yeah, their recruitment, and we've seen it. Maybe not quite as dramatically as Bournemouth, but we've seen Brighton doing this, Brentford doing this. Brighton, that's sort of that motorway taking you from Brighton to Chelsea is remarkable. Often going via Strasbourg now, it appears.
It's a well-known route.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the way I'd go, but it seems to be the route people are taking. But I think the danger is it puts a lot of pressure on recruitment. If you have one bad window, you can be in a lot of trouble. But I was at that Liverpool-Bournemouth game. As you say, Semenya was brilliant that day. Scored twice. After the horrible incident in the first half where he was allegedly racially abused. But I was pretty confident off the back of that game that now Bournemouth are going to be fine, and I think their performances since have shown that. And they're just a fun side to watch. As a neutral, I enjoy watching Bournemouth because they're sort of they have a dynamism and a pace and an excitement to them, and a sense that they consistently play above themselves.
Yeah, just go at you, don't they? With wingers just staying wide, quite old-fashioned in some ways, but it seems to work. They're quite old-fashioned in a way that they play a lot 4-2-3-1, but everyone kind of plays their position, if that makes sense. Whereas that's not how football is nowadays. They're quite a bit of a throwback, Bournemouth, and I'm the same as you. I really enjoy watching them.
Well, I think they have freedom within those positions, don't they? So I know what you mean, that they're not as necessarily as sort of fluid and interchangeable. It's less of a single unit with 11 parts. The 11 parts are a little bit more discrete, but I think the freedom they have within those positions is greater, and I think that makes them less predictable than say City at times have become. I think Guardiola talked about this last season, and I think Semenya is a great example of that he's encouraged to run with the ball in a way that when Grealish went to City, he was encouraged not to run with the ball. So and it might be as simple as that when we've become unused to players running with the ball. So when you see them doing it. It is thrilling to see.
Yeah. Right, let's move away from club football then and move on to international football, Jonathan, because it is, of course, the dreaded international weekend. It comes too early for me. I'm really enjoying the Premier League, except for my own team. And then they just throw in the early international break. I hate the international break, this first one.
Well, if I can present a boring journalist view of it.
I was hoping you would.
Yeah, good. That's what you're getting. Coming just after transfer windows close, it's welcome relief. The pace drops. We can all everybody's exhausted after Monday night, and we can sort of go, and it's, even if you're covering the England games, it's not as intense as constant Premier League. And also it gives people time to read my new book, The Power and the Glory, which is out today.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. You're not covering England this international break.
No,
no trip to Villa Park for you.
No, I went to Barcelona to cover the Andorra game, but I tend not to do England. So obviously I'll keep an eye on the internationals, but it's a weekend of slightly less intensity.
Yeah, I wasn't that bothered about it, and then I got asked to do The Guardian on Monday, so I will have to watch some international football to be able to do that podcast on Monday. The task I gave you was, with everyone fit, Jonathan, to pick your England 11 for the World Cup with everyone fit. I'm going to assume that you've gone with a 4-2-3-1. Have you?
Yes.
Okay, so that's good, because I've done the same, which means we can
4-2-3-1/4-3-3 hybrid.
Yeah, that's fine. So we can go through our teams at the same time then, which the viewers and listeners will be absolutely thrilled with. So goalkeeper, you've gone Jordan Pickford the same as me. There's no doubt that he's England's number one. But I don't know why people try and create like that dialogue sometimes, because there's no one anywhere near him for England. He should be England number one goalkeeper for a few more years at the very least. Difficult one at right back, because the right back isn't even in the squad, but I think he should be, and I can't believe he's not. Trent.
I mean, I've gone Alexander-Arnold with a question mark. I understand he's such a unique player that I'm not saying you have to build your team around him, but you have to build your team in a way that compensates for his deficiencies while accentuating his abilities. So I would like to see him at right back. I understand if Tuchel prefers a more orthodox figure there, but yes, I've got Alexander-Arnold at right back.
Okay, that's good. Who's your centre-back pairing?
Well, I mean, I'm taking that, if everybody's fit, very seriously. Stones and Gay, but I accept Stones has not been fit for a while. But yeah, if they are both fit, Stones and Gay.
Yeah, I've done the same. I think the concerns with the centre backs is I don't feel like there's that dominant centre back. I don't think there is an English centre back except for Harry Maguire, who is dominant. I think Harry Maguire's time has been and gone. So the combination thing would worry me with England centre backs. But I'm a massive fan of John Stones and a big fan of Mark Gay here as well. You going to say, were you going to interject there?
Well, I think Stones actually is, because he's so good with the ball at his feet. I think people forget how good he is in the air. He's a good head of the ball, and he's a big threat for set plays in the air as well. Yeah,
that's fair. Maybe he's the answer to the dominant one, because I like Konsa obviously because he plays for Villa, but when it's Konsa and Gay here, I think it's a bit the same there. There's not an aggressor in those two. Who's left back? I found very, very difficult, even with everyone fit, because the way I'd want to play, I'd want my left back to absolutely bomb on because of what I've got in front of them. But it's difficult for England with left back.
Well, yeah, I've got a lot of caveats about this, but I've ended up with Miles Lewis-Skelly.
Okay, I nearly did. I changed last second to Livramento because I wanted it to really be a left back that bombed on.
Well, what I'm hoping is, and this gives away another element of my team, but I hope Lewis-Skelly and Eze form a partnership for Arsenal that could be transplanted to England.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll talk about that when we get to it. No prizes for guessing who's on the left-hand side of Jonathan's England 11 then. Who are your two holders?
It's Declan Rice, who I don't think is a holder. And you then need, I think, a very composed, tactically astute player alongside him. So I've got an either or. I'd like at least to see Adam Wharton using that role. But there must be a reason why Southgate and Tuchel are sceptical of that. But there's really not that many other options. So Curtis Jones, maybe, but I need to see more of that. I thought Curtis Jones coming on for McAllister on Sunday made a big difference. I thought he had a really good game after he came off the bench. Just sort of pushed Liverpool another 10 yards high up the pitch. So I feel that's an area where England need real work. So yeah, I'd like to see both Wharton and Jones both tried, and whichever performs better to be Declan Rice's partner.
I've gone Wharton as well. I mean, we should be doing this, not Thomas Tuchel here. We're almost picking the same 11. I've gone for Rice. I watched Wharton before he went off injured on Sunday, and every time I've watched him on telly as well, I just think that's a player there. He's so good. He could actually play for Real Madrid. Obviously, the fact Bellingham plays for Real Madrid, I think if Wharton had Bellingham's PR, I think he'd probably be at Real Madrid. He's absolutely unbelievable. But both feet, the way he pops the ball around, wraps his foot around the ball, tempo setter, he's absolutely brilliant, Wharton.
Well, I was at the Palace Forest game weekend before last, and the Palace goal comes entirely because there's sort of there's a cross on the left from Mitchell, which is cleared. Will Hughes goes to win it back. The ball sort of pops out of that challenge to Wharton, and he just straight away pings it out to the right. I don't know, a 35-yard pass to Munoz. He's in loads of space, and partly it's because he's pushed high and maybe people have been dragged over by Mitchell. But Wharton, the pace of the pass and then the weighting of the pass, so that there's no sort of time taken controlling it or anything. And then Munoz picks his cross and Ismail Assar scores. But Wharton was absolutely instrumental in that goal. And it's one of those passes that it looks simple, apart from he had to know where the player was. He had to weight it perfectly. And it's the speed at which he does that means that Forest defence couldn't get back across. And so the space to measure the cross. So I'm a little bit... I mean, it could be one of those players that when you actually finally see him playing for England, you think, oh, actually, he's not quite at the level. But he's been playing so well, so consistently for Palace. And in big games, I don't really understand how that could be the case. But equally, I sort of think Southgate and Tuchel know what they're doing. Why are they not picking him? But it baffles me. I don't get that.
No, it's a shame he got injured, actually, isn't it? Because it would have been interesting to see how involved he was at the weekend. I'm going to assume Harry Kane is verbatim in your team as your centre forward. So who's your three off Kane? Oh, you said it's a hybrid, so I'm assuming Bellingham's in there somewhere.
What I've got is Saka, Bellingham, Eze. I think there's an argument for Cole Palmer ahead of either Bellingham or Saka, and I think you basically have to. I know, it's a real shame that Foden's not even in the conversation. So I would suggest 3 from those 5 based on form.
Yeah, you got to be able to have the element of rotation.
Given how Cole Palmer has played at the start of this season, I think you say Saka, Bellingham, Eze. But yeah, with Palmer ready to come in as and when. And it's great that England have that strength.
Yeah, because I've got a player. In fact, the 2 options I had down the left-hand side, 2 players you haven't even mentioned. So obviously Morgan Rogers, who's started for Tuchel quite a few times, and I do think Jack Grealish will come back into the fold. And then you've got Palmer, Bellingham for the 10 position. I think Saka's a lock on the right. But the rest of it, I think you're right. I think there's different combinations you can use depending on the opponent.
Well, my only question about that is, I think Palmer is maybe better coming off the right than playing through the middle.
Might work better for England as well.
Well, the fact Kane wants to drop deep in that space. I mean, that's the other thing. What I'd like is Bellingham to play in that central role, but actually play it deeper. So it's more of a 4-3-3, that he's sort of attacking one of the midfield's trident rather than being an actual number 10. Because I think, the point you make about Kane liking to drop deep, but equally Saka and Eze or Cole Palmer and Eze, they like to drift centrally. So if you put a player in that space that the other forwards are all trying to move into, it just creates congestion. And also, I think Bellingham's physicality, I think his capacity to play longish passes, it just seems to me, England, why would you not use that deeper if you can? He can still get forward, as and when he can to get goals, to set things up. But it just gives you a little bit more security in midfield. But that then becomes a bit of a question of his ego, whether he's prepared to do that. I think, to be fair to him, the last year and a bit at Madrid, he's had to do a lot more defensive work. But I'd like to see that transferred to England as well.
Okay. Well, in conclusion, we've solved nothing there. That's a little insight into how we think England may line up in the World Cup in 2026. Well, Jonathan, thank you ever so much for joining me as always today. We will be back next week previewing the Premier League as normal. Looking forward to it already, and good luck with your book launch. Oh, thank you very much. It's pre-sales have been encouraging, so hopefully that goes well. But yes, you could see. Treat yourself. It's the ideal gift for Christmas for the relative you don't know what to get him or her. But if they like football, it'd be perfect for them. You sent me one, so you've lost out on the funds there. But you could buy one for your dad, couldn't you? He'd love it. That's true. He would love it. Yeah, you know what? I don't think he's actually watched one of these yet. I sent it to him, and I don't think he's watched it. Wow. I don't know whether you've seen he's become a bit arrogant recently because I've been including him on some of my Villa-based content, and he's built up quite a little bit of a fan club, so a little touch of arrogance about the man now. I did spot him. He's actually started like writing his own bits in the YouTube comments and stuff, saying thank you to my fans, but I can't tell whether he's been serious or whether he's joking. So there's a touch of arrogance from him at the moment.
As a well-known sports editor said to a well-known sports writer, I said of a well-known sports writer, he's somebody to whom you have to teach humility every day.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to get into what I say. Watch the outro. If you don't watch anything else, Dad, watch the outro, and he will watch it because of his ego, because he'll know that it features him. Right then, Jonathan, thank you ever so much again. Back next week, as I've said. If you could subscribe to the channel, let's get those subscriber numbers up so Jonathan and I can start earning some money from this. That would be absolutely fantastic. And yeah, enjoy the international weekend. I'm sure you all will. So this has been 1992. It's a goodbye from me and a goodbye from Jonathan Wilson too.